Happy New Year, Married with Children podcast fans worldwide. I want to personally wish you all a very happy and healthy New Year 2022. 2021 has been a banner year for the podcast, and it looks like 2022 will be no different. Next week, we will air another cast interview, and you will need to tune in order to find out who it is. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. 2022 will be bittersweet in that we should conclude the review of all 259 of the show's episodes, barring any interruption to the schedule. We hope to have some more interviews and provide you with some additional bonus content. But beyond that, we don't know yet if and what we'll do. But until then, keep tuning in. Same Bundy time, same Bundy channel.
This is Annabelle, aka Marydaniac, and I just want to wish all the Married with Children fans out there a very happy New Year. I also want to say a big thank you for all the fans and listeners of the podcast who continue to support us and our passion project. As you've all witnessed, 2021 was a very successful and fortuitous year for the podcast, myself included. I mean, I've had a pretty good year all around. Some horrible things have happened, but mostly very positive. Personally speaking, I got married, and all the guys on the podcast sent me lovely messages. And then show-wise, not only did I get the opportunity to speak to Ed O'Neill very briefly, but to see him do a live chat online, I mean, that's something that's a positive to come out of this pandemic. Actors having more time and they do more online things, and you know, if you catch wind of something, grab the opportunity by the balls and get yourself a ticket and listen to this thing. I didn't know there'd be a Q&A. And next thing you know, I'm talking to the man. I'm thinking, what am I going to say? And couldn't record it. I mean, I was just so blown away. I didn't know what to do. I was frozen, but not as petrified as I was when word came through that we could sit down with God himself and chat for 2 hours about our favourite television show in the entire world, Mr. Michael G. Moye. I want to thank him again for giving us his time. And like his wife says, he doesn't talk about this a lot. So we're thankful to him, to his wife, to Chris and all the podcast guys. Alex and I had a lot of fun doing that interview together, and hopefully we can bring you some more interviews next year, next season. I mean, who knows, but we did pretty well this year. So again, thank you to you all for your continued support, for listening, for leaving Michael Moye YouTube comments to read. We do what we can. Hopefully we've entertained you. We've just got a year to go. Peace out, Bundy fans.
Well, I hope everybody out there had a wonderful Christmas. This is Stephen Scott from Team Aerosmith, and we're looking forward to a brand new year, and I hope you look forward to a brand new year too. Tyler and I are going to be bringing you a lot of our analysis, and I'm going to be joining up with the others, Matt and Annabelle, Luigi, and Chris Gunther, and we're also going to bring a few of you on here too, so I bet you're going to look forward to that. Of course, we will be finishing this project probably around next November. We will finally finish all of the episodes of Married with Children. So come along for the ride. It's going to be a blast, and I'm looking forward to having you all tune in every week.
Hello everyone, Billy Ray Chris here with the Married with Children podcast. And it's December, so you know what that means. I'm sitting here doing my annual Christmas special viewing. So I'm getting an opportunity to see Santa Claus splattered all across the Bundy's backyard. I'm watching Sam Kinison convince Al Bundy that his life is worth living. I'm getting a chance to see Al take a job Santing at the mall. And of course, I'm getting a chance to see Peg's mom taking a job as a phone sex operator and talking to Shoehorn O'Plenty and all the rest of Al's No Ma'am friends. But anyways, on a serious note, I did want to thank all of our listeners who followed us this year throughout 2021 as we made our way through Season 9 and on into the beginning of Season 10. I feel like 2021 we had a lot of really great highlights. Of course, the highlight of the year was, the podcast got an opportunity to interview Mr. Michael Moyer, and our, of course, who's the co-creator of Married with Children. Our founder, Alex Edwards, came out of retirement for that interview, and we were thankful for that. And he conducted the interview with the great Annabelle. And Luigi and myself got an opportunity to interview Dr. Juliet Tablack, who, of course, played Amber, Bud Bundy's love interest in season 9. So, 2021 had a lot of highlights, and we're looking forward to what 2022 has in store for us. We have a few surprises ahead. Of course, I won't reveal those now, but believe me, you're not going to want to miss the podcast in 2022 as we make our way through season 10 and on into the very end of the show in season 11. So, keep listening. And, as always, we want to thank all of our listeners who comment on the Facebook page and comment on the YouTube page and all that good stuff. Because without you guys, it wouldn't be anything. So I just want to wish all of our listeners a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we'll see you in 2022.
Hello, this is Matt from Australia, part of Team Australia, and the closest thing you have to a British person on this podcast. I'd like to wish you all a very happy 2022. It's going to be a bit bittersweet at the end of this year because it'll be the end of the Married with Children podcast, but I've really enjoyed my time on the podcast since I joined in the middle of 2020 when everything was still weird and half closed. Even in Australia, things were still half closed for a lot of us. So, yeah, it's been an honour to be on the podcast. I look forward to making a few more episodes, and it's going to be a bit bittersweet when it comes to an end. So, enjoy 2022, people, especially every single episode of the podcast. Whoa, Bundy!
Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, a Bundy gets to eat. Well, your teacher is full of snot. Happy New Year, Married with Children fans. This is your wonderful host, Tyler, wishing you a most wonderful holiday. I hope you all made it through chilling with your families and didn't murder each other. I hope all of my favorite Married with Children dudes out there got to have wonderful bawoosh times in the bathroom. And of course, everybody who wanted to be just like Kelly and watch the Garfield Christmas special over and over and over, as I assume she does, I hope you got a chance to do that. It's a nice touch for the holidays. And if you're like Bud, well, why don't you just stay in the room, okay? Make sure your door is shut. And for all of my wonderful Miss Bundys out there, settle down into that couch, break out some bonbons, and watch that ball drop as we ring in 2022 and more wonderful Married with Children memories. Finishing up season 10 and getting into season 11. Oh, it's almost here. Whew, I cannot express to you guys, everyone out there, how fortunate and happy I am to be a part of this. I can't wait to make more memories. You guys have a wonderful holiday, and remember, go Bundy!
Hey guys, it's the creator of the Married with Children podcast, Al, and I just want to say, I hope everyone has a very happy new year. We all know 2020 and 2021 were not exactly what we hoped they would be. 2021 being not as bad, but pretty bad for some people. Crazy year for me, I know for sure. The one thing you could always count on is shows like this. You know, during these times, it's always great to hear the movie theater is opened again. You can go see the new Halloween movie, or the new season of Cobra Kai is coming out, or that Ghostbusters, the movie, came out again. Things like that. And we're happy to hear about that after a huge delay. So imagine a show like this, where the Married with Children podcast keeps coming out week after week with free, great, fun content for fans of the show to just enjoy. No delays. I mean, unless they take a break here and there. That's expected. I mean, this is a 5-year-long ordeal. That's how it started when I created it back then. That's why it was going to be a weekly show, because it takes 200 and 60 some odd weeks to get this all done. So it's a lot to just keep going week after week, and it's tough, and it's one of the reasons the original team didn't stick through the whole thing. That became an issue for some people, and it ended up, essentially breaking up the original team. So it's very hard to do, so just remember that. Every time you hear a new show every week, just remember what it would be like to constantly keep going and going and going no matter what's going on in your life, and think of how hard that is. And there are some really supportive listeners of this show, and we appreciate you guys so much. You are the greatest. You know who you are, and we hope that you especially enjoy 2022, because with this team and everything they do now and everything you can go back and listen to of the original cast, I mean, it's just a Married with Children jamboree here, and hopefully it's the companion piece you always wanted to watching the show. I will say, 2021 was not perfect, but it obviously had one of the big highlights in my life, and that was interviewing Michael Moyer, the only living creator of Married with Children. I never thought that little, 11-year-old kid that was forced into his parents' room because everybody was using the real TV in the living room, so I had to just stay up there on my parents' bed and binge watch my VHS tapes of Married with Children. I remember I told you guys somewhere, probably along the way, that, I made a VHS tape as soon as I realized how amazing the show was. And the first show that was ever on it was, Kelly running away, and then, Al slamming her boyfriend's head into the door and all that kind of stuff. And then the one where Al moved the couch across the street and all the women found him sexy and all that. All those episodes, were on my tape, and I just remember sitting there watching on my parents' bed as a little kid and never thinking that that little kid one day would be talking to the guy who created all this, the real Hollywood thing here. It's a weird, very surreal thing. Nor did I ever, nothing like this existed at that time either. Who would think, yeah, one day you're going to grow up and do a talk show about this stuff you're watching right now that you like so much. Yeah, that interview was just a surreal moment in our lives. Very grateful, and definitely the highlight of 2021. Probably not even 2021 for this podcast, but this podcast in general, since its conception. So that's it. Happy New Year, guys, and let's see what 2022 brings.
That tomorrow is our 5-year high school reunion. I mean, that means we've been out of school for years.
I hear people are coming from all over for this reunion.
Mm-hmm. Even foreign countries like Indiana.
Indonesians are coming? We better brush up on our Spanish.
Let's rock.
Thanks, Dad.
Can I get a whoopin'?
Whoa, No Man presents, live from the nudie bar, the Married with Children podcast.
Tonight, the Married with Children podcast goes back to high school, and I think we should have a 5-year reunion every year.
It's Chris here, and I'm looking up at the sky. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's Mr. Potato Head?
Mr. B here, and I think there are actually people coming from other countries like Indiana.
So welcome back to the Married with Children podcast. Today we are reviewing Blonde and Blonder, Season 10, Episode 8. Original air date, November 5th, 1995. Marcy organizes a Toys for Guns campaign to get kids something else to play with than toy guns. Kelly has a post-graduation 5-year reunion and is shocked to learn that the nerd she once stood up has become handsome and rich. Director, Jerry Cohen. Writers, Stacy Lipp and Richard Gurman. Special guest stars, Heidi Mark as Ashley, Kathleen Freeman as the voice of Peg's mom, Lisa Boyle as Fawn, Lisa Picotte as Mindy, Casper Van Dien as Eric Waters, Sarah Ann Morris as Jessica, Armando Garza as Fireman Roberto, Tina New as Debbie, Troy Froman as Chad, Lucky the Dog as Lucky the Dog, Bert L. Cook as Policeman, who is uncredited, and Kim Weisskopf as the voice of Lucky.
For comedy that'll knock you out, catch Fox Sunday night. First, Homer's on a quest to be the world's heaviest man.
I don't want to look like a weirdo. I'll just go with the moo-moo.
On a brand new Simpsons. Then, can Gina cut it as a housewife?
I'll be damned if I'm going to eat another chicken plop.
A brand new Martin. And what makes Kelly Bundy so hot?
There's a 4-alarm down at the orphanage, but that can wait.
Learn her secret on a brand new Married with Children. It's all part of Fox's Knockout November Sunday.
So welcome back, everyone. And today we have a very special guest host and someone who I've mentioned on this podcast before, who was a teacher back in high school, back at my high school, who actually, I used to talk a lot about Married with Children. And I'd say, like, those 4 years I was in high school, we generally had a very regular session on Monday mornings to talk about the Sunday night episode. So, Mr. B, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Luigi. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'll say, Mr. B, it's definitely, it's been a long time. It's been a lot more than 5 years since I was in high school, but
quite, yeah.
I remember on one episode of the podcast, I talked about how, we had this very long discussion about, Kelly with long hair versus short hair.
Right.
And I'll say, after more than 25 years, I'd say that you were right.
Well, yeah, I always enjoyed Kelly with the long hair. But when I saw those later episodes when she cut it, I'm like, you know what? She looks 1,000 times better with the short hair, I think. I remember us discussing that.
Yeah. So Chris, you remember that podcast episode? That was the beginning of season 9.
I sure do. I remember you talking about teacher from high school that you would discuss the show with. It's pretty cool that he's joining us for this episode. I'm looking forward to it.
So anyway, Mr. B, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, well, I started watching Married with Children, I guess, when it was airing on TV, in the 80s. And not to date myself, but, I absolutely loved it. I mean, it was one of the funniest shows I've ever seen. And watched it religiously, right, on Sundays. And then, I guess I left it for a while, a few years, I guess. And then I came back to it like later on and just started watching like reruns on TV. And I was like, man, I forgot how great this show was, and how funny it was. And once I started watching it again, and I'm talking now about probably late 90s, early 2000. So maybe I left it for a couple of years. It wasn't a long time. But I started watching the reruns again. And ever since, I tell you, every morning I wake up, before I go to work, I jump in the shower, give myself half an hour to sit with a cup of coffee and watch one episode of Married with Children. It's every morning religiously before I go to work. That's how I start my day. And I cannot function unless I have my coffee and my episode of Married with Children. It just puts me in the mood to get through the day.
It's just that laughter, huh?
Oh, it is. Awesome. It's the laughter.
That's awesome.
It's Al Bundy's take on life. His wit, his sarcasm, it's outstanding. You know me, Luigi, from when I taught, I'm a sarcastic guy. It's just how I am. And Al just says everything I'm thinking.
Yeah, we definitely say that a lot in the podcast. Al, the character of Al Bundy, says what everyone thinks, but can't say out loud.
Exactly.
Right.
I remember like episodes like this one. So this episode aired in November of my senior year of high school. So I probably, and I have a great memory. It's like I remember when Kelly cut her hair.
Right.
And I would say we probably talked about this like the day after it aired the first time.
Yeah.
I can remember it. I would have said, it's like, wow, like, did you check out all the blondes on that episode? And it just so happens that the episode's called Blonde and Blonder.
Exactly. Yeah, there was some serious eye candy in that episode.
Yeah. Now, recently, Jerry Herring was on our podcast, so he's our big Steve Rhodes fan. And he started this tradition on the podcast where we took note of all of the actresses who were guests on the episode who had posed nude. So on this one, I believe there are 3. So, Chris, when we get through like the character biographies, you can talk about them. But I believe it's Heidi Mark was a Playboy Playmate 1995, as well as Lisa Boyle. And I believe that Sarah Ann Morris was also posed nude at one point.
Yeah, I tried to look up everybody, look at their IMDb's and just see what I found out there. I remember, I think you're right. I think there was 3 of them.
Yeah, just give me a minute to dig out those issues, okay?
I think there was 3 that had posed either for Playboy or nude in one manner or the other.
Yeah, hopefully it wasn't Kathleen Freeman, though.
Yeah, God help us.
Yeah, but I'd say season 10, and we're sort of underway with season 10 at the moment. Mm-hmm. I think season 10 was really the season where there was a lot of eye candy.
Yeah.
Season 9, for example, we had some cute chicks. I mean, we had Juliet Tablak, who we interviewed. Obviously, there's Kerry Russell at the end of season 9.
Right.
But I think season 10, I think like almost every episode or every other episode, there is someone who posed nude for Playboy. There's the Shannon Tweed episode that's coming up next week.
Right.
Yeah,
she posed nude.
Yeah.
Inga and Helga, the 2 Swedish girls that Alan Jefferson go. I mean, they pose nude. I mean, the list just goes on and on. I mean, our season 10 wrap-up show, it's going to be very difficult to choose who our top chick is.
That's awesome.
The really cool thing about it is this group of friends that Kelly has. I believe they're on about 4 or 5 episodes this season, aren't they? Because they're on the
Spring break.
They're on the spring break episode, so that's kind of cool. We get to see them down in Florida, so that'll be fun for spring break. So
there's one missing from the spring break episode. I forget which one it is. One of the blondes is not in the spring break episode.
Yeah. That is Sarah Ann Morris.
Okay.
She's not in that one. Now, Lisa Boyle originally appeared on Married with Children as Bubbles Double D. That is the No Ma'am episode with Jerry Springer.
Okay. One where they're like, will you jump up and down? And she's like, sure. And like,
sure.
She plays Fawn, Fawn, let's get it on.
Right.
And Heidi Mark, she's like the blonde eye candy. I mean, she appears, I believe, in this episode in Spring Break. And also even Lisa Picotte, who plays Mindy, she's the one with the retainer.
Right.
She also appears on a bunch of episodes.
So I had it in my notes, and tell me if you guys agree with this. But I guess she was casted to play the part of like a nerd, but she's friends with Kelly, which is weird, and she's wearing a retainer.
But also she's got the retainer, and in my opinion, she's hot. I mean, you lose the headgear, and I mean, it's like she's just as hot as any of those other ones.
Yeah, I had it in my notes. I'll tell you exactly what I wrote down. I was like, I'm confused by the casting of this character. She's obviously supposed to be a nerd. She's wearing that huge retainer, but she's friends with Kelly. Kelly normally wouldn't hang out with nerds. But the real confusing thing is she's not that bad looking. Like they talk about, like Bud acts like she's hideous. She's not that bad looking. I mean, she's not like a Playboy Playmate, but she's certainly not terrible looking. I mean, she's like a decent looking girl,
But you know what? I think it also plays into sort of the culture of high school, right? They always say it's like the, I mean, and these are general stereotypes. It's like the hot chicks usually had like some ugly or overweight girl, friend, right?
Right.
Right. And they're sort of playing off. And I think that's what they tried to do with her, but they gave her this headgear to make it appear that she wasn't. But I'll say of the group, she's the most accomplished actress. Like the other ones were really like these models who became actresses, right? But I think Lisa Picotte really is truly an actress who had to like really play a part that the other ones couldn't. Like I'll say, like Sarah Ann Morris, who plays Jessica, she really didn't have many lines, but she's obviously beautiful and she's presented to us, but she doesn't really interact as much.
Yeah.
Most of the lines are coming from the Mindy character.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get underway. The title for this episode is a pun on the movie Dumb and Dumber, a 1994 American screwball comedy film directed by Peter Farrelly, who co-wrote the screenplay with Bobby Farrelly and Bennett Yellen. Starring Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels, it tells the story of Lloyd Christmas, and Harry Dunn, two dumb but well-meaning friends from Providence, Rhode Island, who set out on a cross-country trip to Aspen, Colorado to return a briefcase full of money to its owner, thinking it was abandoned as a mistake, but was actually left as ransom money. Lauren Holly, Karen Duffy, Mike Starr, Charles Rocket, and Terry Garr play supporting roles. The film was released on December 16, 1994. It grossed $247 million at the box office and has developed a cult following in the years since its release.
Yeah, it's definitely a cult classic. You know, they came out with another one, Dumb and Dumber 2, T.O. What was it, about 6 or 7 years ago, something like that?
I think more.
Yeah, maybe a few years longer than that. I can't remember exactly, but Jim Carrey and Daniels returned. Jeff Daniels, they returned to reprise their roles. It was pretty good. I don't know if y'all saw it, but
yeah, that was in 2014, and and that's just sort of like, I think
2014.
Yeah, that's just a repeat of like Hollywood. Just try to like dig back into the vault. It's like what made money like 30 years ago, and
right.
let's recycle it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. B, how do you feel about that? I mean, like, I feel like, especially over the last decade, there's been like a loss of creativity, particularly in Hollywood.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're running out of ideas. You look at how many movies are just rehashed, all the remakes, the part 2s, the part 3s. They're absolutely running out of ideas, and most of them are terrible, unfortunately. Absolutely not. When they do the remakes, they're not as good as the originals, ever. I've never seen a remake that was as good or better than the original. And that's, I guess I'm more of a lover of the classics. I just think they're running out of ideas, and it's a shame.
Absolutely. So we open with Peggy coming down the stairs carrying a box, and Peg's mother yelling down the stairs.
Margaret, what's in that box? Is it food?
No, Mom. It's just some old toys I'm collecting for charity.
Don't lie to your mother. I smell garlic chicken.
It's just Al's socks.
So Peg's mom refers to Peggy as Margaret. That's one of the things that's very specific about Peg's mom, and she wonders if that's food.
Yes. She smells garlic chicken, right?
That's right. And they think it's, and Peg says that it's Al's socks.
Classic.
Man,
yeah.
So I guess I thought too much into this, but I was like, so Al's socks and feet smell like garlic chicken now? I mean, honestly, that's a hell of an improvement over what we've seen in the past.
Well, yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Think about it. In the past, we've seen Al take his shoes off, which causes the mask to deploy on the plane. We've seen him stick his feet in the water in the England episode and kill fish. We've seen him remove his shoes off, take his shoes off, which makes the birds literally fall from the sky.
Right.
So, I mean, if his feet smell like garlic chicken, I say that's a hell of an improvement in my book.
Hell yeah.
Hey, Peg. Do I smell garlic chicken?
No, Al. But guess what I found in the attic?
Hey, if I want to keep a noose upstairs, that's my business, Peg.
You have to admit, I mean, nobody does gallows humor as good as that character, huh?
Oh, nobody. The number of times he talks about killing himself, and I love the fact that in that one episode, Death finally shows up and says, "Do you realize how many times you've called for me?"
Yeah. And the image of his wife.
Yeah, exactly. And he just looks and he goes, "Of course."
Right.
That's classic.
No, I dug up all these old toys. They're from Marcy's Toys for Guns exchange program.
Yeah, where do kids today get the idea that a gun is something to play with?
What is going on here?
This is foreplay.
No, honey, this can't be foreplay. I'm enjoying it.
And I'm in the room.
Yeah, I got a crack out of that. I had Nerf guns as a kid, as every other kid did.
Right? Don't they first say something about that they were something about foreplay, and Peg is like, no, if it was foreplay, I'd be happy, and I was like, yeah, and I wouldn't be here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one thing I'll say about this episode. Like, it was like machine gun fire, no pun intended, in terms of like jokes. It's like pretty much set up joke. I mean, like a typical sitcom usually it's like it's almost like three lines to do a setup. It's almost like an interlude and a joke. Yeah. But this one was like rapid fire. Like,
Oh yeah.
They just kept going. And I think that's one of the things, at least, that made it enjoyable to me to watch. But you also get to a point you start shaking your head. But I think as we get on, we'll talk about that.
And Al's always made jokes about enjoying, like when Peg was out of town, and he says that it's either the Jefferson or Steve. I don't remember the episode, but he's looking forward to sex tonight. And like, I thought Peg was out of town, so that's why I'm looking forward to it.
I can't believe you guys. The whole point of this Toys for Guns exchange program is to give kids something else to play with besides firearms.
Now, they talk about trading guns for toys. So I actually remembered this. So when I did my research on this particular thing, this was a thing in the early 90s. There's an article in the New York Times dated December 28th, 1993. It talks about trading guns for toys. And it talk about this happening in the 34th Precinct in Washington Heights section of Manhattan. This is, sort of at the end of the crack cocaine epidemic in New York City. Yeah. So this was a thing. And it looks like it was repeated, and usually, I'm assuming, in metropolitan areas across the country. So it definitely was something. And, the Married with Children writers sort of tapped into it. So it definitely was a thing.
I read that article that you put there. I was trying to find the part that stuck out to me. I believe it said somewhere in the article that New York City had 2 million guns, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Yes. Where did I see that? That's crazy. That's like, I realize the U.S. obviously has a lot of guns. I mean, I read an article that we have more guns than we do citizens in the country. But like 2 million in one city, that's kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, I mean, if you figure the population of the city at the time was probably about 7 million, 7.5 million. So like one gun for every, let's say 3 people or thereabouts.
That's crazy.
Well, I think it's just weird to me because I think of New York as I could be totally wrong here, but I think of New York as like a big anti-gun state. So to think about 2 million firearms there in one city, especially, we're talking almost 30 years ago now, 28 years ago. That seems like a big number.
But I mean, remember, this you're talking about illegal guns. I mean, so...
Right.
And the crime rate at that point in time was very, very high. So, I mean, I have to take their word for it. I'm assuming, there was, some estimate to that, but it definitely was a thing.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
For instance, I am donating this oil-covered Alaskan seagull. Now, watch what happens when I pull the string.
Kids, don't drink and drive an oil tanker.
Now they make a crack about the Exxon Valdez spill.
The Exxon Valdez spill was a spill that occurred in Prince William Sound, Alaska on March 24th, 1989, when the Exxon Valdez oil tanker owned by Exxon Shipping Company, which was bound for Long Beach, California, struck the William Sound Bly Reef, which was 1.5 miles west of Tadalac, Alaska, at 12:04 a.m. and spilled 10.8 million U.S. gallons of crude oil over the next few days. It is considered the worst oil spill worldwide in terms of damage to the environment. The Valdez spill is still the second largest in U.S. waters after the 2010 Deepwater Horizon oil spill in terms of volume released. And I remember when this happened too. I was like 5 or something. I remember seeing a lot of references to this, and I guess I would have been in kindergarten then. maybe something like that. And I remember us talking about it. Even at that age, it was a big deal.
When I put on Hulu, they have these commercials for Dawn soap,
right?
And they have one of the recent commercials is someone cleaning a oil-covered duck with Dawn soap, to get the crude oil out of it.
These birds, once affected by oil, are heading back home thanks to Dawn. Rescue workers only trust Dawn because it's tough on grease yet gentle.
I am home. I am home. I am home.
So I feel like that's an illusion that goes back to that Exxon Valdez spill. So the crack on Married with Children was, kids don't drink and drive an oil tanker.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
I smell foul.
You certainly do.
You certainly do. It reminded me of there was an I Love Lucy episode where Lucy was fed up with something. And she says to Ethel, "Ethel, I'm revolting." And Ethel says, well, I wouldn't say that.
Oh, God. So now Jefferson talks about how he can help disadvantaged youngsters with dice.
Well, I'm going to give the disadvantaged youngsters these dice.
Jefferson, why would you give a kid dice?
Oh, these aren't just any dice. They're loaded. Yep, the lucky gangbanger who trades in his Uzi for these babies will earn self-esteem as he fleeces confused retirees out of their Social Security checks.
So he talks about giving kids a loaded dice.
Loaded.
I love Jefferson, man. He's always looking to either scam someone or pull one over on somebody or something.
Yeah.
In this case, he's trying to teach kids how to do it.
His famous lakefront property, right?
Yeah, Lake
Chickamaco. Lake Chickamaco.
Yeah, and in this case, he's trying to fleece confused retirees out of their Social Security checks. I remember my grandmother would get her Social Security check, and it would come on the 3rd of the month, and it's she was like a bloodhound, when it came time to it's it's the 3rd, and she'd be checking for that check to come in, right?
Right.
What's Mr. Potato Head doing here?
I don't know, you married him.
Not that Mr. Potato Head. The one that's actually worth something.
Oh. I'm sorry, Marcy. I myself once had a Mr. Potato Head who meant a lot to me.
Well, my little sticky buns, what happened to him?
Well, one night, the frat brothers and I got stinko on champagne and grenadine. Next thing I knew, I was stuffing Mr. Potato Head's hiney with cherry bombs. We lit the fuse and blew Mr. Potato Head into hash browns. Oh, we laughed till we puked.
So now we have a reference to Mr. Potato Head. And Al says, "Well, you married him," and Marcy seems to agree. It's like that, not that Mr. Potato Head, to the one that's actually worth something. Yeah,
that's great.
So Mr. Potato Head is a toy consisting of a plastic model of a potato, which can be decorated with a variety of plastic parts that can attach to the main body. These parts usually include ears, eyes, shoes, a hat, a nose, and a mouth. The toy was invented and developed by George Lerner in 1949 and first manufactured and distributed by Hasbro in 1952. Mr. Potato Head was the first toy advertised on television and remained in production since its debut. The toy was originally produced as separate plastic parts with push pins that could be stuck into a real potato or vegetable or other vegetable. However, due to complaints regarding rotting vegetables and new government safety regulations, Hasbro began including a plastic potato body with the toy set in 1964. Over the years, the original toy was joined by Mrs. Potato Head and supplemented with accessories such as a car and a boat trailer. The Mr. and Mr. Potato Head characters appeared in the Toy Story franchise, voiced by Don Rickles and Estelle Harris, respectively. You know what's funny about that, Luigi, is I had no idea that the original Mr. Potato Head was an actual potato, but that makes total sense because the closing joke there of Jefferson blasting off that potato, I noticed that it wasn't a real Mr. Potato Head. I was like, I remember thinking, why didn't they just get a Mr. Potato Head toy? Like, it was obvious that it wasn't, but that makes sense now, you know?
Yeah, but I'm like, I mean, whose idea was it to put a potato, a real potato into like a box? And, I mean, you're like for those classic toy collectors. I mean, if you have a potato in a box and you want to hold on to it for 30 years,
Yeah, I mean, it's like that would be a toy that would not be very durable. I mean, you buy it and it would the toy might last a month and you have to throw it out because you'd have bugs and ants and stuff in your house.
I mean, not much of a shelf life on that toy, huh?
Yeah.
Never mind new in box. Like,
but
that
that's
doesn't
pretty
really
cool.
count.
I mean, that's pretty cool. Of course, we've all had a Mr. Potato Head over the years, but I collect Transformers action figures and stuff. I have a Optimus Prime Mr. Potato Head in my man cave here at the house. It's kind of cool.
Wow. So there's a reference to Champale and Grenadine. So, hey, Mr. B, I mean, you remember those? I mean, that seems to be like I think a little before.
Listen,
my time.
I was basically a beer drinker, so that's like that's not my that wasn't my thing, man.
Yeah, so Champale is a brand of malt liquor brewed with yeast more commonly used in wine fermentation to produce a beer resembling sparkling wines in taste, and Grenadine is commonly used. Is a commonly used non-alcoholic bar syrup characterized by a flavor that is both tart and sweet and by a deep red color. It is popular as an ingredient in cocktails, both for its flavor and to give a reddish or pink tint to mixed drinks. Now, I feel like there were references to Champale on Sanford & Son.
Yes.
Because I think there was like one where, like he said, Champale and Ripple, and he called it Champipple.
Champipple, that was it, man.
Right.
Yep, that was it, Champipple, man.
Yeah, that's right.
That was one of his drinks. What was the other one? The other one was
it was Ripple. I mean, Ripple was the
and Wild Turkey.
One.
Wasn't he like Wild Turkey?
Yeah, well, Al Bundy was a big Wild Turkey fan, and if you check out, I don't know if you checked out the YouTube channel, Mr. B, but I actually did Tang with Wild Turkey was one of my Married with Children creations. I called it a Bundy. I call it, I think, not a Bundy mimosa. Well, what was it? I forgot what I call it. Because a Bundy mimosa is, I think,
it's champagne and Tang.
No, a beer and Tang.
Beer and Tang. There you go. Beer and Tang.
Beer and Tang.
Bundy mimosas.
Yeah, that's right. So I forgot what I called it, but if you check out the YouTube channel, you'll see. Like, I did this whole thing on Tang, and that was one of my creations. So Jefferson says that he lit the fuse on Mr. Potato Head and blew him into hash browns. and they laughed until they puked. So I'm assuming these are like antics, high school / early college antics, right?
Right.
So, Peggy, do you have any other kids' things?
Well, we have those child safety seats in the garage that we never put into the car.
Why not?
Well, we found that it was much easier just to leave the kids at home.
Come on, let's go get them. They're in the garage.
They're out in the garage. I'll show you where they are.
All right.
Come on, Marcy.
Okay, so they exit into the garage. So so Al, Peg, Marcy, and Jefferson exit into the garage, and in comes Kelly with this bevy of beauties. Sarah Ann Morris as Jessica, Lisa Boyle as Fawn, and Lisa Picotte as Mindy.
Can you believe that tomorrow is our 5-year high school reunion? I mean, that means we've been out of school for like years.
I hear people are coming from all over for this reunion.
Mm-hmm. Even foreign countries like Indiana.
Indonesians are coming? We better brush up on our Spanish.
So that means they've been out of school for like years. Now, this is, I think they're really playing up the whole Dumb and Dumber thing, because, I mean, when you listen, when you watch Dumb and Dumber, I mean, you have these, ridiculously farcical, stupid lines. So that's pretty much what we have here.
Yeah, I think for me, it was like, as dumb as Kelly is, when I watched this episode, I couldn't believe that there were 4 more girls dumber than she is. And I'm like, wow, they actually created 4 characters, some as dumb and some dumber than Kelly actually is, which was amazing.
Yeah. And sluttier.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what also struck me is like, does anybody actually believe that those 4 girls, I mean, even Kelly plus her 3 friends, or 4 friends, how many? There's 4 of them, right? There's
Heidi Mark comes in later. So, she initially just comes in with 3 of them.
Right.
That's right. So ultimately there's 4 of them. Does anyone really believe that all 4 of those girls would be single at a high school graduation? Like, they'd be married by now, or they would have a steady boyfriend or something.
Or a sugar daddy.
So now we just have this succession of jokes. So we talk about foreign countries like Indiana, and then Lisa Boyle says the Indonesians are coming, says we better brush up on our Spanish.
There's just so many things wrong with that line. Like, it's classic. It's like you got one stupid part of it, and then there's like 2 other stupid parts. Like, bad enough that she says other countries like Indiana, then you got Indonesians are coming, then we got to brush up on our Spanish. It's like, oh my God.
So for everybody's, so especially for our international audience, so Indiana is a state of the United States. It's not a country. So Indonesia is not Indiana. And in Indonesia, they speak Malaysian. So again, we just want to highlight, again, they're supposed to be stupid. And, and this is one of the things we've said on the podcast, Mr. B, is that, it actually takes intelligent people to play stupid very well. So, so, I mean, the joke is that the actresses are, we don't think the actresses to be that stupid, but in order to, deliver it, to do the deadpan delivery, they have to play stupid. So I have to give them credit for that.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. It's so funny. Like, I was looking at the notes here for Indonesia is the 4th most populated country in the world. And they were confusing it with the state of Indiana.
Hey, Kelly, whatever happened to your horny newt of a brother, Bud?
I always thought he was cute. He can realign my molars anytime.
I heard Bud and his hand are eloping.
So, Fawn, are you still making your meteoric rise through the hierarchy of the 7-Eleven?
I'll have you know that I am a buyer now.
Oh, well, that's a change. As I recall, back in school, you were a seller.
So now, so Mindy talks about, how Bud can realign her molars anytime. Bud insults Fawn by, I guess, commenting that she works inside a 7-Eleven. And she says that she's a buyer. And he reminds her that in high school she was a seller.
Right.
I'll tell you what, I don't know about you guys, but the cashier at my 7-Eleven doesn't look like her. I'll tell you that.
Oh, hell no.
No.
Hell no.
No.
No. I'd be living.
I would.
Please. I'd be living on hot dogs and Slurpees. Please. Yeah. Hot dogs and Slurpees would be a staple diet of mine, and I'd be about 500 pounds.
Yeah.
Kind of counterproductive, because then a chick like that would never look at me, but I mean,
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to get to that part, as there's some glimpses of truth come out in the dialogue.
Yeah.
Hey, Bud, I'm getting my braces off in a couple years. Will you wait for me?
Oh, sure. Unless another hot mama with a big drooly overbite comes along first.
Mindy wants to know if Bud will wait for her. He says, well, yeah, unless a hot mama with a big drooly overbite comes along first.
Mindy, for some reason, likes Bud, which I thought was funny, but yet he's like mortified of her.
Yeah, which makes no sense to me because she is really attractive.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. I mean, especially for Bud. I mean, you know.
Yeah, really. Like, he's got a rubber woman upstairs. What's the little headgear, right? What's the little headgear compared to the spare tire he's got under his bed? I mean, come on.
And that's ISIS.
Yeah, you know, well, you know, Amber from last season left him, so, you know, this is a heck of a lot better than ISIS, you know?
Exactly.
Now, you know, Kelly talks about how there's one girl missing from her little posse, and that's Ashley.
Where's Ashley? I thought she'd be here by now.
Yeah, me too. God, I've really missed her. I wrote her all these really great letters. Can't wait till she gets here so I can give them to her.
I wrote her every day. I can't wait to give them to her.
Yeah.
Kelly, I have missed you so much, and I wrote you almost every day. Here.
Oh, cool.
Now, when that door opens up and Ashley walks in, it's like, yowza. She's wearing like these black, like shiny, like, what are they? They look almost like plastic. I can't even say they're leather pants with that red top. And it's like, it's like my tongue's rolling out of my mouth on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she's one of the hottest chicks that has ever been on Married with Children. And that's a big statement to make because they've had some knockouts, you know, Pamela Anderson and you know, many others over the years. I'd say she's one of the best that they've had. She's a knockout.
Yeah, and you know, she was probably the closest in age, just looking at her bio. She was born, that's Heidi Mark. She was born in 1971. So, you know, when this episode aired, she was 24 years old. So about the age of what she's playing, the character should be. Now, Lisa Boyle, who was also in Playboy that same year, she was born in 1964. So she was, at that point, almost 30.
Wow.
Actually, excuse me, 31 at that point in time. So, I mean, she could definitely pass as a 23-year-old, no problem.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, now that we're all here, let's all look through my yearbook and trash everybody who isn't us.
Look at that geek. He would do anything for me. Do you guys remember the time that he loaned me his car and then I went joyriding in it with another date? And then we tried to steer it with our butts and we wrecked it and we broke our legs? He was such an idiot. I
Oh, wait, and then there's this other guy. I can't remember his name, but what a dweeb. Okay, he asked me to the prom, and I said yes. So he rented this Goonie maroon tux in a stretch limo, and then when he showed up to my house, all he found was a note that said, "Bite me, nerd boy." I just wish I could remember who that was.
That would be me.
Oh, yeah, that would be you. I'm sorry, Bud. You know, teenage girls can be so cruel. I just want you to know I apologize, and I hope somehow I can make it up to you.
Really? Maybe we can go out sometime.
Bite me, nerd boy. Oh, see what suckers men are.
Sure. Go ahead, make fun of me now. But you'll come running back to me when you're 25 and gravity's pulled you apart like a Stretch Armstrong.
So now the girls are looking at the yearbook and they're trashing people who are in it. And so Kelly talks about a time that someone loaned her a car and she went joyriding and they wrecked it. And she broke her legs. Now, I mean, when the hell did that happen? I mean, we've never seen Kelly Bundy in a cast.
I thought that too.
Exactly, never.
And the only way it could have happened would have been if she was how old was Kelly in season 1? Was she 14, 15, I think? 14, 15?
Yeah, something like that.
It would have had to have happened when she Yeah, it would have had to have happened when she was like 13 before season 1. You know, so, but what the hell was she doing driving when she was 12 or 13?
Right. Well,
Although
like,
this is Kelly. This is Kelly, though.
right, and you remember the episode where she's daddy's little girl and she's reminiscing, and the cop keeps bringing her home. And there's one episode where the cop brings her home and she's actually dating him. She couldn't have been more than like 15 years old.
That's true. So we could say, all right, well, right, you know, before season 1 began, you know, she broke her legs in this car.
Yeah.
I like how Heidi Mark's character immediately starts talking about Bud, about how such a, you know, what a nerd he is, what a loser he is, and you see Bud sitting in the background. You know that she's talking about him. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, she's like, I stood this guy up. He came, he showed up, and I was just like, I left him a note later, nerd boy, and he's just like looking down. She's like, I wonder who that was. Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, you know it's Bud. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, of course.
So after Bud talks to Ashley, who's the Heidi Mark character, he insults her by saying, but come back to me when you're 25 and gravity has pulled you apart like a Stretch Armstrong.
Right.
I had a Stretch Armstrong as a kid. Stretch Armstrong is a large gel-filled action figure which was first introduced in 1976 by Kenner. In 2016, at the New York Toy Fair, Hasbro announced the return of Stretch Armstrong toy in its original 1976 design. So it's kind of exciting.
So now we hear about Eric Waters, who's also referred to as Eric Nine Toes Water, and about a particular chilly New Year's Eve where Kelly stood him up at the Hancock Tower.
Oh, Bud, don't feel so bad. There was this guy in high school who was an even bigger loser than you. Eric Waters. Even the tape on his glasses had acne. Anyway, he asked me out this one chilly New Year's Eve, and I said, sure. Meet me on the top of the Hancock Tower, stripped to the buff. Well, of course I stood him up, but that toe they had to amputate was a good lesson on trying to date out of his league.
So the Hancock Tower is a 100-story, 1,128-foot super tall building located in Chicago. Located in the Magnificent Mile District, its name was changed to 875 North Michigan Avenue on February 12, 2018. It was constructed under the supervision of Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill, with Colombian-Peruvian chief designer Bruce Graham and Bangladeshian structural engineer Fazul Rahman Khan. When the building topped out on May 6, 1968, it was the second tallest building in the world and the tallest outside of New York City. Interesting. And I've been up to the top of that John Hancock's tower a few times. Yeah.
Yeah, I have too. It's a beautiful building.
So, so the story is that, the guy was stripped naked. He stripped himself naked and he waited on the top of this. And I guess the reality is like, well, I mean, if he got up to the top, what about the other tourists? I mean, didn't he know that?
Like, was there nobody up there looking at him like stark naked and saying like, what you doing there, buddy?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And, she said, well, I told him I stood him up, but they had to amputate the toe. It was a good lesson on trying to date out of his league. Oh, God. I guess that might be the inner dialogue of like the of the beautiful girls, right? Of the hot girls, right? Maybe.
Right.
I wonder. Yeah. I don't know if that's what they think, but I'll take a stretch and say, no pun intended, that's what they think, right?
Right.
So now we see the move. Oh, yeah. We did have a way with the guys, didn't we?
Yep. All we had to do was give them the move. I wonder if mine still works. Let me see.
There's a 4-alarm down at the orphanage, but that can wait. Wanna ride on my truck?
Sure. Bye.
So when Kelly makes the move, in comes a fireman. So you want to ride my truck? Sure. And out she goes. So now we cut back to Al, Peg, Jefferson, and Marcy.
Man, I used to love Monopoly. Buy up property, put a bunch of poor people in jail. Now you want to build a hotel, you got to put up a homeless shelter. That little thimble guy lands on your property, he puts up a "will work for food" sign, and a damn thing you can do about it.
Yeah, they even ruined Operation. It used to be if you butchered a guy's spleen, lose a turn. Now they take away your medical license and you have to perform black market liposuctions in the back of a Jiffy Lube.
Hey, you know, I have a good idea. Why don't we play bottoms up until the kids come home?
You know what, Peg? I have an even better idea. Why don't you and Marcy go hide? Jefferson and I will come find you.
Good, I love to play hide and go seek. Come on, Peggy. I know just the place.
Here we go. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004.
And, Al makes some comments about Monopoly. It says, he used to love Monopoly, buy a property, put a bunch of poor people in jail. And then there's also, Jefferson talks about how they ruin Operation. Used to be you butchered a guy's spleen, lose a turn. Now they take away your medical license. You have to perform black market liposuctions in the back of a Jiffy Lube.
That's awesome.
And those are real sitcom joke. I'm saying it's like a different kind of style of joke. I mean, it almost sounds like a very Seinfeldish to some degree. Yeah. Would you say?
Yes.
No, definitely.
Now, Peg introduces this game called Bottoms Up. Now, I had to do some research on this because I'd never heard of it. Now, have either of you ever heard of Bottoms Up before?
I always just thought it was Twister, but they couldn't use Twister.
That's exactly what I thought. I thought it was Twister, like they didn't have the rights or to use it, so they just came up with a TV version of it and called it Bottoms Up. That's what I thought.
Well, you're both right, but there's actually a game called Bottoms Up, which was invented in 1969, which is sort of a Monopoly type of game. Although the game that we see on the show was more Twister in nature. So the object of the game called Bottoms Up was to be the first player to accumulate 30 credits, thereby completing 1 year of college. The game was produced by the Colt 45 Malt Liquor Company and designed for adults. And a few of the ground rules listed in the game were A drink of Colt 45 means you bottoms up 1 glass of Colt 45. With this in mind, it might be best to start with 4 or 6 ounce glasses. B, of course, if you're not of legal drinking age, then it means a glass of milk, prune juice, or similar beverage. And C, the minimum length of time for a kiss should be agreed upon and at least 10 seconds for a start. So some of the action cards required you to do smoke 2 cigarettes simultaneously, obey any wish or request of the player on your right, put an article of your clothing on backwards, do a Jack Benny imitation for 30 seconds, and explain to other players why you think that sex before marriage is a necessity. So you can find this game on eBay, and they're not cheap, by the way. It seems like it was a very limited release game for a brief period of time, late 60s, early 70s, and then that was the end of it. But then later on, we see them playing Bottoms Up, which is more of Twister. So what I thought was funny is Al and Jefferson tell the girls to go hide, and they start counting, and then they just ignore them, watch TV.
Yeah, that's totally something us guys, us men would do. We're just I just want to sit here and watch TV. Damn it.
Yeah, you go hide. Yeah, I'll come find you.
Yeah.
Now we cut to the school gym, and in comes Bud with Mindy.
Escort tonight, Bud.
Oh, you're welcome. And now that my escort duties are over, I'm going to escort myself over to that hot redhead over there. See ya.
You'll be back. And you'll be begging me for a little flesh and metal.
So if you'll notice in the background, we have a sign that says Class President Richie German. So that's a reference to Richard German, who was one of the producers. And President Kim Weiskopf, who was also an executive producer for the show. Gurman co-wrote the episode, as I noted at the beginning. And the music that's playing in the background is Can't Touch This by MC Hammer, which is a riff on Super Freak by Rick James. And that was released in January of 1990. So if this is 1995, it would make sense that Kelly graduated high school in 1990. So you're playing the music from 5 years earlier.
Nice. That adds up there.
I like Mindy's line. She says, "You'll be begging me for a little flesh and metal." Like I said, I wouldn't mind it. Little blood ain't going to kill me, right?
Yeah. Hell no. You can make good use of that thing. Come on.
Because I've seen these big handlebar braces like on TV and stuff, but I've never actually seen one in real life. Did kids actually wear those at some point, or?
Yeah, they did.
Okay, because I've seen this on other shows and stuff during that time period, but I don't remember any kids in school that I grew up with having braces.
Yeah, and I've never seen a 23-year-old wearing them, right? I mean,
well, that's a little bizarre.
You would expect it maybe on an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old, right? But not at that age.
Yeah.
And I've also seen them with the back brace, the big metal back brace.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm just imagining so Mr. B, just to let you know, I'm a flight attendant, so I'm customer facing, every day when I'm on the plane.
Sure.
I'm just imagining a flight attendant showing up to work on a plane wearing one of those.
Can you imagine?
How the hell would you wear one of those during the COVID era where you have to wear a mask?
Yeah, you got to get a pretty big mask.
I mean, can you imagine wearing a mask and wearing one of those at the same time?
Talk about having trouble getting a date, geez.
Well, I'm just thinking, one of the weirdest things to me is when you see these men that have these enormous beards wearing a mask. Yeah, you have a mask and you have a huge beard popping out. And that looks weird enough. This would look way weirder with the...
Oh, hell yeah.
You'd have a mask with this hunk of metal just popping it out.
Well, imagine it look like, those pup tents that they set up, it look like having a pup tent on the front of your face.
Oh,
That's
God.
funny.
So after the scene between Bud and Mindy, we now have the rest of the girls. So Kelly, and again, I'm going to go by the actresses' names. We have Heidi Mark as Ashley, Fawn, Lisa Boyle, and Sarah Ann Morris as Jessica come in.
Feels good to be back in the old gym again. Yeah. Look, the hoops are in the same place. Look, there are the bleachers. Oh, and there's the club. Oh, and there's you. Oh. Come on, let's sit down.
Okay. Uh-oh. Big problem. There's 6 chairs and 5 of us.
Well, maybe one of us will show up again later.
Okay.
Oh, gosh. You guys, this is so much fun. I think we should have a 5-year reunion every year.
Yeah.
And Mindy joins them, so now there's 5 of them. So the girls say, wait a minute, there's a problem. There's 6 chairs and there's 5 of us. So says, well, maybe one of us will show up again later.
That's one of my favorite. That is my favorite line in this episode. We have a problem. That's my favorite line in the episode.
As good as those girls look, there's no way all 4 of them would be single at a high school reunion. Not happening.
So trying to put some realism into this. So, at a 5-year high school reunion, would you expect them to be 23 years old?
Right.
I mean, that's so long as they haven't been held back. Now, now, one of the things we'll talk about later, I mean, we can mention it now, is that, Bud is at that high school reunion. And Bud is younger than Kelly, so why is he at that reunion?
Right. That's true. And it's possible, those 4 girls are just too stupid to realize anybody was interested in them. I mean, they could be going for that.
Well, what's really weird is that, Bud's there because he's Mindy's date, but the other girls
That's
don't
true.
have it. The girls that are, we already talked about, Mindy's not bad looking herself, but the other 3 girls are clearly hotter than her. They're Playboy playmates, but those 3 girls can't get a date? Or they don't have a date with them? I don't know.
Or maybe they're fishing for a $10 million alum, you know?
That's true.
Right,
They want the $10 million guy. They don't want Bud.
I mean, Kelly has that great line. He's like, he's the ex-husband of my dreams.
Right, exactly.
Now, you know, like stuff like that. I mean, have you encountered things like that at your high school reunion? So, you know, so Chris, as I mentioned, so Mr. B was a teacher in my high school. I was never his student. Like one of the funny things about this.
This is true.
You know, but, you know, and my high school actually has a tradition that, I don't know if you could call it a tradition, but we have a reunion every 5 years. You know, so like religiously, like I think actually our first reunion is like 6 months after we graduated.
Right.
Like it's probably like I'm going to say in January or February of the year after we graduate. And then at the 5, 10, 15, 20, because of COVID, the 25th reunion anniversary was canceled this past year. But one thing I will say, like in my encounters, and I've been to all of my high school reunions every 5 years, and it's fun. I'll say like Facebook has taken a little bit of the bite out of it. Because now, like pretty much like, you know, you're on maybe these groups where your high school class is maybe like on one group and you can hear, well, you know, who has had kids, who has maybe like some kind of like a job announcement, like somebody might, you know, have gotten a great job or is doing something interesting. And you find out about that. So what I found is like the last reunion that I went to, which would have been 5 years ago, when I got there, it was like, well, we all knew like, you know, what had gone on with each other's lives. And what I liked about it was we actually had like real conversations instead of like trying to catch up with people. But these conversations that they talk about where it's like you start reminiscing, like these are the things you talk about at a reunion. And it's like stuff like that. Like, you know, it's like somebody who maybe like something funny happened to them and like maybe like they're a little embarrassed about it. But maybe like 20 years later, it's like they can laugh about it as well because, you know, so much time has passed. So I think it sort of touches on that vein of like what a high school reunion is like for people. I mean, have you guys had that kind of experience?
Well, oddly enough, I did not go to my my 10-year one. My 20-year one is coming up here in a couple of years in 2023. You know, 2023. But I think you hit the nail on the head that I think that like, I guess with younger generations or whatever, that Facebook kind of takes a little bit of the bang out of it because my class, you know, class of 03 has a Facebook page and it's very active, you know, like I know who everybody's married to, you know, who has kids, you know, what jobs people have. I have them on LinkedIn, you know, so on and so forth. So I feel like social media kind of took a little bit of the bang out of that. I know my class, there was over 400 people in my graduation class. And from what I heard, less than 50 people showed up to the reunion. So it wasn't, you know, I didn't even go and I live in the same town.
I think it has helped to a degree where, you know, all the reunions that I go to, obviously as a faculty member, you're supposed to be at all the reunions. And, you know, it used to be pretty much just kids like coming in and the conversation was always the same. So what are you doing now? Where are you? You know, whatever. And now that you can keep in touch with all the social media, that stuff's all out of the way. So when you see these people, you can actually have real conversations. And it's no longer, what are you doing now? Where are you? Where are you working? Are you married? Like that's all off the table. So it's kind of like you got the preliminary crap out of the way and you can actually talk for real. Because you know all that stuff already.
Yeah, you know, and I will say for my 5-year reunion was a shock to me because I went in and so what happens at my high school is the reunion is in the school cafeteria. You know, my graduating class, Chris, was 650. All right, so usually at a reunion they say like the first maybe the 5-year maybe you might get half of the class, and then like it goes down. So maybe you might have like 200 to 250 people maybe show up. And what happens is the shock to me was that the faculty members were actually serving us alcohol. It's like they were like the bartenders, right, Mr. B? Am I wrong on that?
Oh, absolutely. Any reunion, I always know because my school does the same thing. I'm in Brooklyn, and every 5 years it's another reunion. So you can always tell who the most recent graduates are. They graduated 5 years ago. This is their first reunion. You know who they are because they're all crowded around the keg. Like my school orders a couple of kegs, and these are the kids who, for the first time, they can drink on campus. And so all of the kids who are just out for 5 years, it's their first reunion. They're all huddled around the keg because they're so excited to be drinking on school grounds.
Yep.
Look at all these losers. To think that I slept with every guy in this room. What was I thinking that night?
Oh my God. Hang on to your thigh cream, girls. Prime Veal at 4 o'clock.
Where?
No, guys. There.
He is cute. If I wasn't rocking Bud's world tonight, I'd be wearing him like a wet retainer.
Oh, you guys, he's coming this way. He's coming. He looks important. Do you think I could nonchalantly get my underwear off by the time he gets here? You wearing underwear? You really have changed.
So now we have, the slutty lines. So Fawn says, and to think I slept with every guy in this room. What was I thinking that night? I mean, yeah. I have to say, the delivery is so deadpan. I mean, I have to give them credit for that. Really.
Yeah.
So now Ashley says, however, hang on to your thigh cream, girls. Prime Veal at 4 o'clock.
And they're all like, where?
Yeah, they don't get the 4 o'clock reference very well. They look in all different directions.
Well, here's my thing though. If you think about if you look at the screen, right? If you look at where she's sitting when she says 4 o'clock, first of all, he's not at 4 o'clock. If she's, I'm trying to think, if she's like 12,
right?
He would be where he's standing would be like 8 o'clock, right? He's not standing at 4, and even if we're 12 o'clock, he's 2. So I don't know where she's getting 4 o'clock from.
Well, I guess that's part of the joke. She doesn't even know where 4 o'clock is, right?
Right, yeah. And they're like, where?
I thought this was a funny line, although it's probably a little out of context. She says, hang on to your thigh cream, girls. And I'm thinking to myself, usually thigh cream is for cellulite, but I mean, these girls are 23 years old. I mean, they definitely don't need thigh cream.
Yeah, these girls damn sure don't need thigh cream, I can tell you that. They damn sure don't have cellulite. Well, the line that made me laugh the hardest was whenever she said, let's see how quickly I can get these panties off and or these underwear off, and Kelly goes, "You're wearing underwear."
She's like, "Oh."
Just the way we talk a lot about how it takes a smart person to play a stupid person, whatever. Just the look on Christina Applegate's face when she says, "You're wearing underwear," she delivered that, man.
She's so proud of her.
Yeah, she's perplexed. She's like, "You really have changed," Christina Applegate always delivers those lines. Her delivery is always on point.
Yeah.
So again, we have this rapid fire succession of jokes. So it's set up joke, set up joke. I mean, it's almost as good as a Rodney Dangerfield routine, right? I mean,
right.
I mean, at least you have a pause with him, but here it's one sentence after another. It's you can't keep up with the jokes. I mean, and they're all of the same nature too. Now we actually see a very handsome guy who's holding a cell phone. So this is a mid-90s version of a cell phone with perfect windswept hair, very tailored clothes, and we find out that he is Eric Nine Toes Waters.
Hi, girls. Remember me?
Yeah, aren't you the guy who was standing over there just a couple minutes ago?
Maybe I can refresh your memory. Does the Hancock Tower ring a bell?
No, but I think there's a time and temperature sign up there. Although I could never figure out which is which. You know what I mean?
I can. I watched it go down to minus 10 degrees that New Year's Eve you stood me up. I'm Eric, Nine Toes Waters.
Eric Waters? God, you look so different.
It's amazing how your looks can improve with nice clothes, contact lenses, and $10 million.
$10 million? Oh my God, he's the ex-husband of my dreams.
And he has to point out that nice clothes, contact lenses, and $10 million improves his look.
Right.
So Kelly exclaims that, he's the ex-husband of my dreams.
Funny.
Look, you guys. Look at all the loser things Eric used to do in high school. Computer club. Future businessman of America.
Oh.
Look, class valedictator. Who would have thought that a geek like that would have ended up successful?
Now, the girls are looking at a yearbook while they're sitting down at the table, and they're investigating Eric Nine Toes Waters, and they find out he was a member of the computer club, a future businessman of America, and the class valedictator.
The valedictator. Who would ever guess the valedictorian would go on to be successful, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And what I'll tell you is, sometimes that doesn't happen.
That is true. Fair point, yeah.
I remember the person who was the valedictorian at my college. Like, I went to an engineering college after high school, and he graduated I think with a perfect GPA, which is nearly impossible. And then he went to culinary school.
Wow.
I mean, I'm not saying that he's not successful, but I think some people get an image of it's the class valedictorian, the person who got the highest grade should be the richest person or with the best job and all that. And generally that doesn't happen all the time.
No, definitely not.
One of the things I'll note, and sometimes, I go to high schools and colleges and I do career days. And the advice that I give kids is this. I say, what really people should concentrate on are their communication skills. And for myself, what I'd say is probably the most important classes that I could have taken were English, being able to speak, speaking, reading, and writing clearly. And I'm also, as Mr. B knows, it's I'm a big proponent of the arts, because I feel that a lot of times there's an emphasis on STEM in terms of a curriculum. It's everybody should be focused on, science and math. But it's everything is important. I think at the end of the day, all those things are important. But I think to be successful in life, you need to be able to communicate well. And something like what we're doing here, this is a form of art. I mean, we're discussing, a show that aired, 25 years ago. We're talking about it, we're thinking about it. We have to speak clearly to an audience. And it's not something that comes easily, but with practice, it can be done. I mean, I think anyone can do it as long as, they practice. But it's one of those things that I think in the modern world is usually frowned upon. But I feel those are the things that make you successful.
Oh, absolutely. When you use the word practice, and that's the arts, right? And no matter what, the arts is whether it's visual arts, performing arts, it's teaching you to practice and to improve. And that's something that you're going to apply to every aspect of your life.
So the girls now have set up. So now we have a duel between Ashley and Kelly.
Hey, Kelly, you thinking what I'm thinking?
Why don't things fall up?
No. I'm thinking we should have a contest. A duel for Eric's affections.
You're on. Okay. Choose your weapons.
Damn, I knew I should have brought my wet t-shirt. Okay, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll use the move at 40 paces.
Fine, go ahead. Okay. All right, move over. You've seen the rest. Now check out the best.
The contest is, choosing their weapons and doing the move at 40 paces. So we have Ashley gives her first, does her first go at it, and Eric ignores her. Now, one of the things it's funny, I don't know if you picked up on this. So when Ashley does the move, this whole flock of men come around her, and there's also one female gym teacher.
Yes.
Yeah, I noticed that. It's hilarious.
And is it, now here's my question, Luigi, is that the same female gym teacher that's in the episode where Kelly's the cheerleader and the gym teacher is like kind of hitting on her and saying, oh, girls, party at my house tonight after the game?
All right, cheerleader huddle. All right, girls, we're up, but it's close and the guys really need your support. Men always need a woman's support. What do they give us? Nothing we can use. That's why we must treasure these moments together. By the way, tonight will be the traditional year-end slumber party at my place. You seniors know what I mean. All right, now, get out there and shake your dots for Polk High.
That was the episode Polk High, right, in season 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. But,
that would have been a hell of a callback if they did that.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk about a running theme, right?
Yeah. P-O-K-E, Polk High.
Yeah. She's like, no, it's P-O-L-K, like, Polk, the president.
Yeah. No, you remember like the says like, I like her a lot.
I like her.
And the thing is like it's so irreverent and so politically incorrect, I guess you might say, right? I mean you can't get away with jokes like that because like I'm sure like there would be female gym teachers who would be offended by that, and there's probably
absolutely
there's probably like some female gym teachers association of America that doesn't want
looking to sue,
Yeah, like I said, the Italian Anti-Defamation League, this, whatever it is. I mean, you're going to find someone who's offended by this, right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. That's the type of joke. I always say we're so lucky that Married with Children happened in the time period that it did, because a lot of the jokes that are on the show wouldn't fly nowadays. And
oh my God!
Also,
yes.
And also the show wouldn't really have fit in the 60s or 70s.
Oh,
so
no.
we're really lucky. We had this period in the late 80s, early to mid 90s where this show worked perfectly, and we're so lucky that it happened when it did.
Oh, absolutely. That episode where Peg is out dancing with the strange guy, the gay guy, and his husband's me. And at the end of the episode, Al was like, he's a homo, Peg. I'm like, oh my God, like you would never get away with that. Like
the Homer Simpson episode.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right.
Pete and his potato.
You had Pete's potato?
I did. And I had his peach cobbler too, if the dog didn't take his bowl back.
Yeah. You got a man at home that loves you. Yeah, well, you got a woman that don't push your luck.
That was like that to me is a 5 episode. The dialogue on that is like is hysterical.
Absolutely.
I'd be curious to know, Chris, if we went back to the episode, how Alex and crew rated that. But that to me is that's like solid gold right there. But so politically incorrect in today's world.
Oh, absolutely. The way Al tells him to come sit next to him. What are you doing over there? Come over here.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great episode. I'm pretty sure they gave that one 5s. I'd be surprised it didn't. That episode's a masterpiece.
Wow. He ignored both of their moves.
Yeah, it's like he's deaf or something.
This has never happened before. We need advice from an expert on rejection.
So Kelly and Ashley get rejected by Eric. And I think it's Fawn who says, yeah, it's like he's deaf or something.
It's like he's deaf or something.
Now, one thing I wanted to point out, when Bud walks in with Mindy, one of the things he says is like he wants to go check out that redhead over there. And I'm thinking to myself, like, hasn't he learned a damn thing from Al? Like, stay away from redheads?
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Yeah. If Al were my father, I would run if I ever saw a redhead.
Exactly.
Can I have this dance?
For the 15th time.
Is this a cool hickey or what?
Oh, yeah, it's much better than the ones you make at home with the dustbuster.
Bud, with these braces, I could make a hickey that would never heal.
Look, Bud. Kelly and I can't get anywhere with Eric Waters. Now, you're somebody who keeps trying even though he gets rejected, you know, time after time after time after time after time.
Yeah, I get the point.
Okay. Well, we need to get through to Eric. What should we do?
All right, look, before you do anything, I'll go talk to him. I'll see if there's any hope at all, right?
I'll go with you, Bud.
No, you stay here. I'd rather admire you from across the room. Way across the room.
So now Bud is with the redhead, and we see her, and the actress's name is Tina New, and she plays Debbie, although that name is not mentioned on the episode. So Mindy says, these braces, I can make a hickey that would never heal. So Kelly goes over to Bud because she's trying to understand rejection, and she figures that Bud knows the most about rejection. So now we cut to the Bundy living room, and Al, Peg, Marcy, and Jefferson are playing bottoms up.
All right. Al, right hand blue.
What is it about this game that's so sexy? I'm touching Peg's rear, and for once it feels pretty good.
I feel someone touching my rear. I think it's Al. He's not as strong as Marcy, but he knows what I like.
I love all these hands groping my tush. This game is just like sex, except I have a partner.
I hate this game. No one's touching my rear, and it's way up in the air.
Oh, and they have us neutered.
So now, they're all talking about touching their rears, right?
Yeah, the dialogue here is amazing. This is probably one of the best stretches in the whole episode here. The writing really gets strong here, I think.
Yeah. And I love when like Al's hand is on Jefferson's ass, and it's like, is not as strong as Marcy, but he knows what I like.
Yeah, I got a good laugh out of that whole sequence there. Marcy's like, I hate this game. No one's touching my bottom, and it's up really high,
As I mentioned earlier, Bottoms Up, at least the game that I think is referenced, is a different game than what they're playing, and they really seem to be playing Twister. So Twister is a game of physical skill introduced in 1966 by Milton Bradley and has been inducted into the American National Toy Hall of Fame. It is played on a large plastic mat that is spread on the floor or ground. The mat has 6 rows of large colored circles on it with different color in each row, red, yellow, green, and blue. A spinner is attached to the square board and is used to determine where the player has to put their hand or foot. The spinner is divided into 4 labeled sections: left foot, left hand, right hand. Each of those 4 sections is divided into 4 colors. And after spinning, the combination is called, for example, right hand yellow, and the players must move their hands or foot in a circle of the correct color. So I think the whole point is you have to continually twist your body so that you don't fall down.
Right.
And I don't know if either of you watched Mad Men. I remember there was, I think, an episode of Mad Men where they showed Twister on screen. Did you guys remember that?
I did not see Mad Men.
No, I've never watched that.
Wonderful, wonderful show. That was actually probably, after Married with Children, the only show that I saw from start to finish in real time.
Okay.
So now Bud has a conversation with Eric.
Kelly, I need to talk to you for a sec.
Okay, but just don't touch me.
Look, I talked to Eric, and he really likes you.
He does?
He wants to meet you alone.
He does?
Now, he's drawn this map so you know where to go. Be there in an hour, and don't tell anyone.
Even you?
Yeah, Yeah, especially me. I can never know.
Oh, thank you so much, Bud. I owe you big time. I'm not gonna, like, pay you or anything, but I owe you. Thanks.
And we find out that he says that Eric wants to meet both of them alone. So first it's Kelly, and then it's Ashley.
Right. and they go to dance with him. She's like, can I talk to you? Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
Ashley, I need to talk to you for a second.
No, okay, just don't touch me.
Look, Eric told me he really likes you.
He does?
He wants to meet you alone under the bleachers. You know, back where they retired your number?
Thanks, Bud. And I want you to know, out of all the nerd boys I humiliated, you cried the best.
Thanks. I'll remember that. You just remember under the bleachers, 15 minutes.
Okay, got it. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Miss... how many Mississippis are there in 15 minutes?
Now, I'd say at this point, did you guys say like something was up? Like you know, like how sometimes like, you know, you don't know what the punchline is until the end of the episode?
Yeah, I figured that both of them were going to go up there. I didn't know that Bud was going to crawl out from under the bleachers, but I figured they were both going to end up on the top of the building there somehow, you know?
Yeah, the first time you saw it? Yep.
Yeah.
What about you, Mr. B?
Yeah, I definitely knew he was up to something. With Kelly, I figured, yeah, he's going to have her wait on top of the tower. I wasn't sure what he was going to do, like with Ashley. That kind of took me by surprise, but that was great.
Yeah, you know, if you remember in the episode Impudent, right? Like the whole thing about,
Yes.
you know, faking impotence. Like, I remember the first time I saw that episode, mind you, I was very young. I was probably 9 or 10 years old. Like, I'm sort of like, what's going on? Because like, you're sort of not let on that, you know, Al and Steve are up to something. So you get to the punchline at the end, and it's like the studio audience is howling. Like if you listen to their reaction, because it was totally unexpected. But in this case,
Right.
you know that something's up because he's doing the same exact thing to two girls. You know, he's doing it to both Kelly and Ashley. And, you know, and Ashley has a great line. She says, I want to know that of all the nerd boys I humiliated, you cried the best. Oh, God. So one of the things that Ashley says is, you know, how many Mississippis are there in 15 minutes? So I think the correct answer is 900. So I think a Mississippi's a second. So the 60 Mississippis times 15 minutes, right?
Right.
Thanks, Eric. I had a really good time.
Right back at you. Nerd girl.
Well, we sure got our revenge.
Well, I certainly got mine.
But how stupid is Ashley? I mean, if you look at Casper and look at Bud, right? He is completely clean shaven, and Bud's got a goatee and a beard. It's like, you know, you can't tell that this isn't the same guy.
Well, the other thing, you know, I was going to say, you guys have seen the old movie Revenge of the Nerds?
Sure.
Did this scene remind anyone of that scene where that you know the scene I'm talking about?
Yeah, that was Ten McGinley's girlfriend on the movie.
Yeah, I remember where that nerd is. I think he's wearing a costume or something. I can't remember. It's been so long now.
I believe it was a Star Wars, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, he's wearing a Star Wars costume. Yeah, but you know the scene I'm talking about. This totally reminds me of that. You know, that scene is pretty controversial nowadays. You know that? It's you know, a lot of people say that, you know, I guess in the Me Too era, you know, not to get too far off track, but a lot of people have a lot of problems with that as far as like, you know, sexual consent, because she thought she was having sex with one person and reality she was not, So I sort of feel like this scene here, not to go too far down a path, but I feel like this scene is something that wouldn't air on network television now either.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's very explicit. Like, she's pulling her dress down, as she comes out from under the bleachers. So, I mean,
she thinks she's having sex with one person, but in reality, she was having sex with someone else,
Yeah, and that's, again, I think a sign of the times. I mean, that was, in the 80s, I remember watching Revenge of the Nerds when it probably maybe a couple of years after it came out. I not in the movie theaters, but probably when it was first airing on TV. So that was probably, that was 1984. So figure like 1985, 1986. And mind you, I was very young at the time, but I'm like, it seemed like normal. And I guess it's like, for us as a society, normal changes as time goes on. So it's like, I saw that film, I was probably maybe 7 or 8 years old. Again, I'm not understanding, like what's really happening other than, let's say this guy's kissing this girl. But right. I would be very apprehensive to show it to my 10-year-old.
Sure.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is like Eric Waters is leaning right up against the bleachers there. So it's like he pretty much had to hear what was going on underneath those bleachers. They're right there, he's probably thinking, yeah, great, one less shower I got to take. But he's got to be sitting there like listening to what's going on under the bleachers there.
Sure. Yeah.
I still don't know what yours was, though. Where did that map lead to you gave Kelly?
Oh, gosh. 20,230 Mississippi. 20,231 Mississippi.
We cut to Kelly on top of the Hancock Tower, and she's at 20,230 Mississippi. So she's been there a while. And actually, let's figure out how long she was there. That's actually an interesting question. So 20,230 divided by 60. Yep. Divided by 60 is 337. 337. What is that? Hours? No, can't be. Minutes?
Minutes, probably, right? Yeah.
60 seconds, right, in a minute. So 330 divided by 60 again. So you're talking...
She's been there about almost 5 hours.
5.5 hours. How is that possible?
So she's been there 5.5 hours and hasn't realized yet that it's...
that he's not coming?
No pun intended?
Exactly.
I guess she's going to stand there all night. I would think security would come up and be like, "Hey, the building's closed. Get the hell off the top of the." Get the
well, maybe she thought he's walking a little slower because he's got one less toe.
God, that bottoms up was great. We should do that every night, right, Al? Isn't that typical? He falls asleep and I want to play again.
Peggy, have you seen my Mr. Potato Head? I can't find him anywhere.
Gee, I think I saw Jefferson with it a minute ago.
Uh-oh.
Oh, look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Mr. Potato Head? Well, starting to get the feeling that Eric's not going to show up. Bud is going to pay for this.
So now we cut back to the Bundy living room, and they seem to be very content with bottoms up. And Peg seems to be very happy, and Al's asleep. So Marcy says, "Have you seen my Mr. Potato Head? I can't find him anymore." And Peg says, "I saw Jefferson with it a minute ago," and Jefferson launches the Mr. Potato Head.
Yeah, did you guys notice, like I was saying, that's not a real Mr. Potato Head back there. It looks like an actual potato, like the old-fashioned guy.
Yeah.
And, there was some trick photography because, like, when he launches the potato, I'm assuming, like, the potato, like, didn't really launch. So I think they just did, like, a stop motion on the camera. So it's like the thing sort of, like, it ignites, and then, like, they just got rid of it so that, they took the shot right after, so it looks like it disappeared. So now we have a reference to Superman by Kelly. Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Mr. Potato Head.
Yeah.
Kelly sort of figures out that Eric's not showing up, and she said that, Bud is going to pay for this. So we cut back to the bleachers, and Bud is content and happy, and he says,
"Oh, it was a mighty fine day in the life of Bud Bundy." Well, I guess I better find me a ride home. What?
It's hickey time.
So that means Mindy was under there listening what was going on too.
Exactly. So she's a perv.
So she was under there the whole time and the two people were having sex?
Oh God.
No Ma'am will be right back to wrap up this week's review. Be sure to join their Facebook group page for all the podcast news and updates. Be sure to subscribe to them on the Apple Podcast app, and please leave a review telling them what you think of the show. To subscribe to their YouTube channel, just go to channels and search up Married with Children podcast. Join their Patreon and support your favorite podcast with a small monthly donation. You can email them at marriedwchildrenpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for checking out this review.
And we're back. Okay, so Chris, how many Mr. Potato Heads are you going to launch for this episode?
Well, Luigi, that's a good question. And I'll start off by saying I like the episode a lot better now after reviewing it with you than what I did when I watched it earlier. I feel like, I don't know, it's kind of funny. I guess I changed my mind a little bit on some of the writing. Some of the jokes for the girls was really good. Especially like you said, it was rapid fire, one after the other. For just basically the dumb blonde jokes, the title of the episode, Blonde or Blonder, or Blonde and Blonder. I feel like some of that writing was really strong. I don't feel like the B plot was very strong, really. I mean, we've got Al, and we basically got the adult. This is a Kelly and Bud episode. It's a Kelly and Bud centered episode, and then we've got Al, Peg, Marcy, and Jefferson there at the house playing the TV version of Twister, which had some funny moments and some good writing too, but I just didn't feel like the B plot was very strong in this. However, it did have a lot of eye candy. We spoke about the girls earlier. Three of those four girls appeared either in Playboy or in some form of posed nude in one way or the other, so that's cool. So overall, I like the episode. I like it a lot better than what I did earlier, but I don't think it's like a Hall of Fame episode or a masterpiece or anything like that. So I'm going to give it 3.5 Mr. Potato Heads out of 5. So.
Okay, very good. All right, so Mr. B, how many Mr. Potato Heads do you plan to launch for this episode?
I'd have to say, I really love the dumb jokes in this episode. I think are outstanding. They really shine for me, and they just crack me up. The interaction between Bud and Kelly and Bud and the other girls and just the girls between themselves, it's just that they're just so stupid. I absolutely love all those interactions. The B plot, even though there wasn't a lot of Al and Peggy in this one, I do think that when they did show those little scenes, they were quick-witted, they were funny. It was just kind of cut to them, funny stuff, and then cut away from them. I don't feel like there was any boring parts whenever they cut to Al and Peggy and those guys. I feel like it was pretty well written. For me, I'm going to say I'm going to launch 4 potatoes.
4 potatoes. Very, very good. Then they'll turn to hash browns, right?
Exactly. So,
for myself, in terms of Mr. Potato Heads that'll get launched, I guess, over the Hancock building, I'm going to give this 4 as well. I think when I went into this episode, I had sort of Chris, I'm a 3.5 kind of guy in the later seasons. That's like to me like a standard Married with Children episode. But I thought it was stupid jokes, but at the end of the day, like I just thought it worked, and this was like a little bit of a nostalgia for them, a little bit of nostalgia for me. Again, having Mr. B on today. I think this episode to me was also a little reminiscent of Married with Prom Queen, because like Al and Peggy, they had their 20-year reunion, and that was back in. Was that season 2 or 3? Chris, do you remember?
Married with Prom Queen. I feel like that's a season 3.
So this is about nostalgia, and I think the eye candy was I think enticing to me. I think even more so than when I was like 16, 17 years old when I'm watching this for the first time. But it was funny, and like I said before, like it takes smart people to be able to do stupid very well. This was like I mentioned before, like machine gun fire in terms of the jokes. It's like like very very Borscht Beltish, like very much like almost like that Henny Youngman. It's like Take My Wife, Please, but but you did like a '90s blonde version of that, and it just kept going and going and going. So that made it work, and that's what made it funny. Typically, I like earlier seasons. And I always say this because I always thought that it had very sophisticated humor. I think one of the aspects of Married with Children from the early seasons that I really like is that you have 2 layers of comedy. You have, that slapstick comedy, but you also have that high culture comedy that's blended in. That to the average person will get the slapstick, but I think a more intelligent person will get that higher. At higher comedy. So this was very low level comedy, but it worked, and it made me laugh. I had a lot of laugh out loud moments. So for me, that's why I'm going to give it a 4 today. So for Mr. Potato Head's launching over the John Hancock Tower.
Nice.
Okay. All right. So that's it today for the Married with Children podcast. So Mr. B, before we wrap up, I just want to say thank you so much. It was really an honor and a privilege to have you on and to talk the way we used to talk, 25 plus years ago about, these episodes, because I don't think we used to talk to them about them line by line, but I do remember like going over sort of the outlines of the episodes. And that was like a Monday morning / afternoon activity I used to do whenever I would see you in the hallway.
Oh, absolutely. It was such a pleasure to do this. It was great to hear you again and talk to you and to talk about, the episodes like we used to. I do remember it well. And yeah, I always look forward to seeing you. I'm like, oh man, I got to talk to Luigi about what happened last night.
Yeah. So Chris, one of the things, Mr. B and I were also fans of the Honeymooners.
Okay. Absolutely.
So there was another teacher who unfortunately passed away 10 years ago. 10 years ago, it was very tragic, very close teacher who was my actual teacher. And they were very good friends with Mr. B. And they used to talk about the Honeymooners a lot. And I was a big fan of the Honeymooners. And, because of Mr. T, I bought the Lost episodes on DVD. Which I recommend to all of our fans out there. If you've never, if you're familiar with the classic 39 of the Honeymooners, the Lost episodes are like almost like another 200 sketches, I think in total. Yeah. And they're just wonderful sketches because, at the end of the day, the Bundys are really like the descendants of the Cramdens. And the Bunkers, right. They're not the descendants of like Leave It to Beaver or Father Knows Best or, any of those like cheeky sitcoms of the 80s. No. I mean, these are like very raw people and very real people, I'm going to say, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, these are great memories for me. And I really, I said, it was really a trip down memory lane. And this was a great episode that you chose, Mr. B, just because they're talking about high school. So we get to, it's
absolutely,
it sort of ties in.
When you told me season 10, pick one, as soon as I saw Blonde and Blonde was on there, I'm like, oh, that's the episode. Like it's high school, it's dumb blondes, it's perfect.
All right. So again, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Luigi.
Mr. B, it was a pleasure talking with you. And
pleasure, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. Luigi's mentioned you before in the past. It's it's nice to finally hear your voice. So
that's great. Same to you. And anytime, I'd love to do it again. Anytime you let me know.
And we'll definitely take you up on that offer. All right. So next week on the Married with Children podcast, we will be airing a very special interview with an actress who appeared on this week's episode. She is extremely accomplished, and her husband and 2 children all work in the industry. We were able to secure an interview with her right after we recorded this episode and thought it would be great to air her interview right after. So we hope you will tune in to hear it. 2 weeks from now, we will be reviewing The Two That Got Away. Al and Jefferson go away for the weekend to a fishing lake in upstate Wisconsin. But when they arrive at the fishing lodge, they are rudely told to leave when Shannon Tweed, a famous B-movie actress and former Playboy playmate, has taken their reservation. But when the guys arrive home, they discover that Jefferson had inadvertently snapped a photo of Shannon seducing the lodge owner in a hot tub as the reason why they were kicked off the property. As payback, Al and Jefferson decide to throw a tabloids auction to see which magazine will get that photo. Meanwhile, Bud casts Lucky the dog in a dog food commercial, but Lucky will only act unless Kelly performs the scene first. So thank you all. Thank you again, Mr. B.
Thank you, Luigi.
And as always, tune in again next week. Same Bundy time, same Bundy channel.
Take care, y'all.